Hello and welcome to the Aquarius Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Reed. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by AquariumCo-op.com, your home for all of your betta needs. And why do I say betta needs? Because today's episode, we're going to talk a lot about bettas with my guest. So what do we have on the Co-op website? You can get a betta decal, extreme betta pellets, a betta floating log by ZoomEd, the floating betta exercise mirror, Hikari Betta Bio Gold pellets, and a ton of articles and blogs about betta. So check it out. 5 best tank mates for your betta fish, top 10 betta fish plants for your aquarium, top 5 best betta fish foods you need to try. All of it is on aquariumcoop.com. All you have to do is type in the word betta in the search bar, and all of these awesome things will come up. And now, on to the interview. Today's date is Monday, January 4th, 2021. My guest today is Gianne Souza. Gianne is a longtime keeper, breeder, shower, and judge of bettas, both domestic and wild strains. Gianne runs the information-packed website called Inglorious Bettas, where she has blogs and all other manner of content to help you be a successful betta fanatic. Quite fittingly, Gianne is a high school biology teacher and has earned a master's degree in biomedical sciences from the University of California, San Francisco. So, Gianne, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So, biomedical sciences versus just like medical sciences? Like what is the distinction for the bio aspect of that?
I think it was just more basic research at the bench. So my particular research was on host. Oh my goodness, sorry. I'm kind of nervous. I don't know why I'm nervous. It's like we were talking fine for an hour before this.
And then you hit record and everything changes.
But anyway, I was studying like innate immune interactions between the host for humans and tuberculosis. So I don't know what makes it biomedical versus medical. I was looking at more the basic side of it, I guess.
Gotcha. And to completely diverge, as I like to do or end up doing, what makes tuberculosis so infectious even to this day? And like, why don't we have a good rap on that, I guess?
Oh, geez. It's a complicated interaction and it's long term, right? The tuberculosis bacteria has found out many, many ways to thwart the immune system and to establish long-term infection and to reactivate and become active again much later in life. So, and that, because it kind of insists itself into the lungs, it becomes extremely resistant to drugs. So that's probably why we still have it around.
Okay. And I think maybe for me, because I didn't pay attention nearly enough in high school biology like I should have, differences between like bacteria, viruses, diseases, like his and where I'm trying to draw the correlation here for listeners is you go down your local fish store aisle of medicines, right? And something treats gram-positive bacteria, something treats, this type of infection. Like, what are the what's like the most core breakdown between those things that you might be able to help a non-scientific noob like myself better understand like that kind of difference?
Yeah, I guess if you're trying to treat a certain parasite, whether it's bacterial or viral or even, something that's multicellular like a worm, right, a nematode, just to do a lot of research and figure out what drug could potentially be beneficial, because each drug has been formulated to attack a very, very specific protein or flag on the surface of that organism, right? The surface of a gram-positive bacteria is completely different from a gram-negative bacteria. There's like all sorts of different proteins on the surface, and the drugs were formulated to attack very specific ones. So one drug's not going to work on another drug.
Right.
That's why you want to look at the active ingredient of anything that you're using and to make sure it matches whatever you're trying to treat.
And what makes a bacteria, and this is where like California public education system might have failed Randy, or Randy just failed himself in general, not by not paying attention. Bacteria versus virus.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is that most basic breakdown between like what makes a bacteria, what makes a virus?
Oh, geez, you're asking the hard question.
Is it? I thought it was gonna be like, you're a moron, Randy. It's like,
oh no, it's like how do I simplify? Not simplify. That's not the right word. How do I make the distinction right? So bacteria are unicellular, so they're made out of one cell, right, a living unit, and they have their own membrane, and depending on if it's gram-positive, gram-negative, that membrane is going to be different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so bacteria is made out of a cell, basic human or basic unit of life. A virus, on the other side, is we call it an obligate parasite. It can't live on its own. They can travel from one organism to another, but it can't reproduce or replicate itself, rather, not reproduce, replicate itself without being inside of another thing. So that's kind of the main difference.
So virus is more parasitic in nature, where
yeah,
bacteria can kind of just exist on its own.
depending on the bacteria,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Depending on the bacteria. But viruses, yes, they're obligate parasites. They need to co-opt a host machinery in order to remake themselves and to spread more of themselves. Whether viruses are living or not is its own exam question.
Oh, nice. Is there a right answer to that, or does it depend on like the virus, or?
Honestly, depends on how well the student reasons with it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, there's like 5 basic tenets of life like, that govern whether something is living or non-living. And there are arguments that viruses have some, but not all, of those different qualities.
Interesting.
So, yeah, the fact that it can't, quote unquote, live on its own, it can't replicate without using something else, kind of makes it, quote unquote, non-living.
Interesting.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
very cool, very cool. So
Yes.
see, that's like the hardest question within the first 5 minutes of the interview, right? And everything is just us talking about fish nerd
I thought we
stuff.
were talking about fish.
You said you listen to the podcast. You know I do this kind of stuff.
I know,
but,
I know.
No, I mean that's super interesting, and this is honestly something where just like me personally, I need to go and just give myself a little biology 101 and update myself on that. Okay, so I digress. Gianne, let's just jump straight into the origin section. And I guess what also would be fun to preface this is that you have some serious like back history with the Aquarium Co-op. You're
Yeah.
originally from the Edmonds, Washington area, which is where the Aquarium Co-op retail store is. And you were saying a fun fact that when you and Corey had done a live stream before, your YouTube channel was larger than the Aquarium Co-op YouTube channel at the time, which is
yes.
awesome. That's
Oh
so
my
cool.
goodness. It's just because I had been doing it longer, I think,
Yeah.
before Corey. And Corey, when he does something, he does it 200, 300%.
I have
you
not
know?
noticed that. I have not noticed that about my boss.
And
No.
my channel's just kind of like, oh, when I feel like it,
Yeah.
I'm going to put something up. And
Totally.
If it's fun, it's fun. If it goes well, it goes well, you know?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So, what is your origin story as a fish keeper? What are your earliest memories in the hobby?
Oh, goodness. Earliest memories. Gosh, I always feel like I've been surrounded by animals and fish and plants. I remember my earliest memory now. I had a goldfish named Mr. Orange. This is like when I was like barely speaking, like a tiny child, okay? And I had Mr. Orange. My mom brought him from the store. I was so happy. I had a goldfish, probably in a fish bowl, horrible.
Sure.
And then I remember seeing my cat the next day, and my cat was wet up to the elbows.
Oh boy.
And I clearly remember that's when I learned cause and effect. I remember I learned how to figure out from the evidence of the cat being wet up to the elbows where my missing Mr. Orange had gone.
Oh my goodness. That was
So,
your
yeah.
first Sherlock Holmes kind of
Yes.
kind of real life scenario.
Now I remember.
What is it? Deductive reasoning? Is that
Something, yes. From the evidence,
Yeah,
what can
yeah.
you infer? And I just remember crying, and we got another Mrs. Orange, and
nice?
kind of went from there.
Did you
so.
seal the lid on the second one?
Yes, we got a different fish tank with a lid that
Gotcha.
was impenetrable by cats.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, that's my earliest memory.
Gotcha. And
Gosh,
then
that's been a while since I thought about that.
we just dragged up some emotional
Yeah,
wounds.
some serious trauma.
The first 5 minutes, we hit you with explain to a dum-dum bacteria versus viruses.
Oh,
And then, Gianne, please drag up your most painful memories
I've
of
been
childhood.
on winter break, like I haven't been thinking about. Anyway, yes.
Yeah, welcome to the hot seat. It gets real in here. So then how did your experience progress through the hobby then?
I guess we just always had fish. I remember we had a 10-gallon tank. I didn't really take care of it, unfortunately. It was more my mom's thing, And I remember, this is how ignorant I know we were. When we cleaned the fish tank, we would take all the gravel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
Oh
like
yeah.
rinse
Scorched earth.
it
Scorched earth.
underneath the chloramine water. Or no, here we don't have chloramine.
Mm-hmm.
California has chloramine under the chlorine water, just to really make sure it's clean, you know? So I think I started reading more about it really in high school. Started to get interested in genetics and really, really started getting interested in it in graduate school. So whenever I moved down to San Francisco, I had my own place. I was able to have as many fish tanks as I wanted. Like I'd always had fish in my dorms, mainly bettas.
Nice.
Always had 4 or 5, above the legal limit of how many fish tanks you could have in a college dorm. But I never.
They're just large water containers, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
I could drink from that if I want to.
Yeah, and there was a really good fish store in Pullman, Washington. I went to Washington State, by the way. And there's a great fish store there. And I always kept fish, but I didn't start really breeding them and getting crazy about them until I moved out to California and had my own room in an apartment finally that I could fill literally to the brim with fish tanks. So
let's take you back to you had a 10-gallon tank. Your mom kind of took care of it. Was it just more of like for the family, kind of a fun thing to have, or was there anybody like that was a serious aquarist in your immediate or extended family?
No,
Okay.
yeah, we just kind of had it. I mean, thinking back even further, like I had more insects than I had fish.
Oh, you're
like,
one of those.
Yeah, I
people.
had a lot. I wanted to be an entomologist, so I had like tons of praying mantises, beetles.
So when you
and-
see a praying mantis take down a hummingbird,
Yes.
does a little part of you cry inside? Because that is like that's like second,
I like birds
second
too.
to a snake eating something. Watching a praying mantis just go like aliens, grab a hummingbird at the feeder. The hummingbird's just trying to get some like sweet water, right?
Yes.
And all of a
yeah.
sudden, whack! Praying mantis gets it. That like breaks my heart. So.
And they're incredibly strong too.
Yeah.
Like,
Thank God bugs are small.
Yeah.
Or it'd be Starship
they
Troopers.
take over the world.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I don't know. I think it's cool. I am also a bird lover. I have 2 parakeets. So anyway.
Nice. So then I guess kind of growing up, then you guys just typically had like community fish tanks, smaller like nano-y fish.
Yeah, one fish that jumps out to me is like this. What is it? A Chinese algae eater is what they used to be called. I'm not sure what their actual designation is, but
The guys that don't actually eat the algae.
no,
right?
the
Yes.
ones that suck off the scales of the other fish. Like I saw it, it got huge and it started to do that.
This is so time relevant.
Yeah.
Oh,
Actually, yeah. My grandfather. Why am I just remembering all of this stuff? He used to keep koi fish in a, he said it was a 100-gallon tank. It was like a 30-gallon tank. One of those. And I remember he kept those for a while. The koi got ginormous, way larger than we shouldn't have been keeping them in a tank. And then I remember there was an earthquake, and it, collapsed the tank, and it spewed water everywhere. And he never kept fish again after until I got into fish after graduate school, and then he got way into the bettas too.
nice.
So
That's awesome.
yeah, kind of. But I remember that now.
Well,
yeah.
I brought up so I said the Chinese algae eater. You brought that up. That's so time relevant because my dad, who's had a 20-gallon for, I think he has it set up for probably like maybe going on a year now. He had visited, sometime in the summertime, or maybe it's like a year and a half ago. I don't know when the last time he came up. But he came up from California and dropped off some of my old Star Wars toys, like the kid paraphernalia that he was still holding on to. So now I have all my old Star Wars toys and Exo Squad and all that cool stuff.
Yeah.
Being a kid from the late 80s, early 90s. And I sent him home with cherry shrimp and some like water lettuce and guppy grass and hornwort. And I think some of that had some rainbow fish eggs on it. But nonetheless, he's telling me that like the guppies were doing well and now they're dying and they're disappearing. And he also mentioned that he has a Chinese algae eater.
Oh,
I'm like,
of course.
He's like,
yeah.
well, his first question was, are the cherry shrimp eating the guppies? And I'm like, well, the guppies are probably dying somehow, and then they're just doing what scavengers do and completely decimating the entire carcass. And I even theorize that they eat the bones because I've seen it before where like there was a thing there was a guppy, and now it's completely gone.
It's gone.
There's no
Yeah.
bones, right?
Yeah.
So that they're probably doing their scavenger thing. but they're certainly not like actively picking off live healthy guppies. I cannot imagine. I don't think I've ever heard that. I've never seen that before.
I haven't heard of that
But
either.
now that you say that Chinese algae eater, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that guy's probably bullying them. But now if you're saying that they also will actively like just straight munch on scales and get down on a fish that way. And I told him in the text, I'm like, you got to get rid of that fish.
Yeah.
Like, one, it's not eating algae, so that's doing you no good. And now it's just going crazy on your guppies.
Yeah.
So.
And I want to mention, I don't think that was like normal behavior by any means. I just don't think we knew how to take care of the tank properly. And maybe it was starving in some way. I don't know. This sounds horrible, but I mean, I just didn't know at the time.
I think you do hear reports though that those guys can be aggressive, and that they're when somebody goes to get a Siamese algae eater and they've mislabeled a Chinese algae eater as a Siamese algae eater, you're then buying something that doesn't eat algae but also has more aggressive tendencies, because then the Siamese are also a little ornery. So I feel like that kind of fits. I feel like those pieces just kind of it's like, all right, well, that seems like that may be what's happening, and then for you to kind of confirm that to an extent.
I mean, I was a child, so.
Well, we're gonna hold 12-year-old Gianne to that. When I tell my dad to get rid of that fish.
I do have memories of that fish like sucking on the side and then leaving like red marks, you know. So, yeah.
I'll ask him that. I'll ask him if any
I
of the
wonder.
guppies actually have like. Did he say? I don't want to dig up the text, but I'm going to go back, and I think he might have even said that he's noticed something like that. But yeah, interesting. Yeah, because you go from like having a totally healthy, vibrant population to this guy getting a little older, because when they're younger and smaller, they're not aggressive.
They're so cute when they're little.
And then as they get bigger, that's when they start getting ornery.
And ours got huge. Like it was an older fish. Again, child years.
Yeah.
Everything seems longer when you're a child, but it seemed big. Yeah.
Before I forget, because you brought up koi's in California, did you ever go to Capitol Aquarium in San Francisco? Or no, in Sacramento?
I don't think so.
Oh.
Wait, Capitol
Aquarium. It was in downtown Sac, and they had, as you go into it, they have this massive waterfall off to the right, and the water went down. They had a bridge going over it. And so this is just to get into the store.
Yeah.
Plants everywhere.
Oh, I would have remembered
and
that.
And then massive koi. And they had the little 25-cent or nickel, koi bubblegum dispenser.
Oh, that's awesome.
That thing, that place was so amazing. And I'm pretty sure it closed down a couple years ago, but that place was just awesome. And they had a couple 300-400 gallon tanks where they had just massive, people dropping off their common plecos and all the other fish that shouldn't be sold to, 90% of the aquarius out there. They had huge tanks filled with those. And I want to say they even had an electric eel that they nicknamed PG&E. So for those not so for those not in California, PG&E is Pacific Gas and Electric. So that's what they named their electric eel. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, and this place was just so cool.
Oh
so
man,
cool.
I missed out then, because I actually did some research at Sacramento State.
Go Hornets! One of my alumni schools.
Yeah, gosh.
All right, Capitol Aquarium.
Yeah.
For the viewers listening to this, or for the listeners, I'm sorry. This is terrible.
Gosh, I really missed out, because I did a whole summer in Ron Coleman's lab, like his cichlid evolutionary. I forget the whole name of the lab is so long.
Okay, so I'm exaggerating the height of the waterfall.
Yeah, wow.
But it was, I don't know, I guess I pictured it being like way up to the ceiling, so I did like the childhood thing.
Cool.
Where you think something's bigger than it actually was. But these koi though were massive. And so you'd walk in from here, and everybody listening, I'm showing her a picture of what this is. You can Google Capitol Aquarium Sacramento, and it's like one of the 4th or 5th pictures that shows up. But yeah, you've got these massive koi here, this cool waterfall, and then it would extend down here to the, just to this other side of this bridge thing. Yeah, no, it was super awesome. Yeah,
amazing.
Capitol Aquarium closes after 52 years. So that's the main entrance. Yep, and you can see that bridge. Yeah, but that place was so cool, though.
Darn, I missed out.
Look at him rocking his Sac State shirt. Yeah, it makes me sad. All right. More sadness in this episode.
I know.
Good job, Randy.
We brought up so many things.
Is there anything positive we can talk about? So when did you get your first experience of bettas?
Again, we had bettas growing up, but I had always kept them as just desk pets. But it wasn't until I got, again, into graduate school in San Francisco, had my own place, and I was doing I was taking genetics as a part of my graduate studies. And it was a very intense take-home genetics exam, graduate level. So this thing was like 15 pages long. And I just remember taking it home and procrastinating, obviously. And one of the projects that was inside of this take-home exam was looking at Danios, of course.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I was looking at some gene or some other in a Danio that I didn't really care that much about. But I had been reading a little bit about betta genetics and kind of looking at the bettas as well, looking at all the different forms and colors. And instead of doing my take-home final for graduate school, I made this like really elaborate Punnett square to create a double tail crown tail, which is a very which is combining two recessive fin traits in the bettas that I saw maybe one video of it online, but I hadn't seen very many of them. And I wanted to see if I could create one. And yeah, it was super fun. The video that I found was of a yellow one. Yeah, that one. So the double tail, crown tail. Yeah, that one.
Wow.
And yeah, so a lot of...
and so the double tail being, is it like this or it's split?
It's split along the longitudinal axis. So if you look at the fish from the side, right, the bottom, so the anal fin is much larger and broader than the dorsal fin normally, the fin on the top. So on a normal betta, the dorsal fin is half the width of the anal fin at the bottom. But on a true double tail, the anal fin is mirrored up onto the top of the fish, right? You see how they're about the same size and width?
Wow.
And then the caudal fin, so the tail fin, is also mirrored up on the top. And then there's double the rays at the base of the caudal fin, which makes it a double tail.
Wow.
So you can see there's, so Randy is showing us, he just Googled double tail, crown tail, and there's a wide variety of, of symmetry, right? Some double tails are better than others. Some are more symmetrical than others.
Look at this one. This is like a gothic rock star.
Oh yeah, that's just a regular crown tail,
Oh,
but it's
just a
cool.
regular?
Yeah.
Okay.
So crown tail is when you have webbing reduction. So the rays in the fin are the same length, but the webbing is reduced quite a bit, which makes the fish look super spiky and cool. And those are traits that I cared more about than whatever was happening with the Danios in that paper. And then, yeah, it was a pretty fun home project for me to do. Like I assumed that there were no fish that were carrying any of these traits. So if I were to start with like a pure crown tail fish, pure crown tail single tail fish, and a pure double tail non-crown tail fish, how long would it take me to make a double tail crown tail? And I think I was able to boil it down to 4 Punnett squares.
Did the gender matter of which one had which trait to begin with?
No, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, I made 4 Punnett squares. I wanted the population to be more homogeneous. Like, gosh, do you say it homogeneous or homogeneous? I always forget.
I think I say homogeneous.
Homogeneous?
No, I think I say homogeneous. No, I say homogeneous. Now that I say it out loud.
Right? Yeah.
Which people are like, Randy, you
Jeez.
don't say homogeneous. What are you talking about?
I know.
I swear.
That's the problem when you read a lot, but you
Yeah.
don't talk a lot. I mean, I talk a lot, but yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Totally homogeneous, yeah.
Homogeneous.
Because it always reminds me of just saying of milk. Of just homogeneous milk, yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
But when you read it, you want to say homogeneous. Anyway, sorry, sidetrack.
That's anthropology.
You can get the double tail, crown tail, but only a very small percentage of them, right? If you were to do
Like you're trying to
it
get
in
it
3
fixed.
crosses.
You're trying to fix it.
I was
right?
trying to fix it. So my plan was like 4 Punnett squares. I was like, oh, this could take me 2 or 3 years. Let's do it. And then I got my fish and I started breeding, and it was super fun. Yeah, that was my main project. And then on the side, I wanted to do something a little easier and more well-known. So I also started working with red and yellow bettas, where yellow is just recessive to red. And yeah, it kind of started me on my whole crazy betta journey.
Wow. So
Was just that genetics final that I didn't want to do.
how do we go back and unpack some of that double tail crown tail experience? So what? I guess where'd you get your bettas from? Like, how did that selection process go down? Did you just pop into Petco or your local fish store?
know.
And
So this is where I ran into California Betta Society. They were having a show, and I went to my first ever Betta show and talked to lots of people. I brought my little blueprint of what I wanted to do.
that's awesome.
It was super fun talking with other nerdy hobbyists, and we're still great friends to this day. And yeah, it was super awesome. So I got some of my fish from that first show. Normally, after the show is run, after all the fish are judged, some of the fish go up for auction. That's a great way to get amazing show stock, right? And then the breeders, you can contact the breeders, make sure they're pure, whatever. So I got a lot of fish from that first auction.
So then, I guess, what kind of questions are you asking somebody? Like, let's say somebody had the double tail that you wanted. What were you asking them? Like, hey, is this like, what kind of breeding stock is it from? What's the mom? What's the dad? That kind of stuff.
Typically, so I wanted to fix double tail. So I wanted to ask, like, are both of the parents double tail? Is one single tail, one double tail? Was one of them carrying double tail but appeared single tail? Just so that when I fill in the Punnett square, I have an idea of what the offspring are going to look like. Because double tail is associated with some deformities, I ask, like, what percentage of the spawn had crooked spines? It's a very, very common malformation, and some double tails are worse. Some are worse than others.
Any reason why you would see more crooked spines with double tail?
It's kind of interesting. I have never done a double tail to double tail cross, which would presumably give you 100% recessive double tail. But I've never done it because everyone always said that would give you really deformed fish, right? Like a higher percentage of them would be malformed. So pretty much everybody that does double tail always tries to have a single tail carrying double tail parent to help prevent that.
Gotcha. And the crown tail would fill that void for your experiment, right? Like that would...
It was hard because crown tail is completely different. So it's a different locus. They're not, they don't interact at all. So you're kind of balancing two balls. What's a good
your term
analogy?
what does that mean, locus?
So they're not linked at all. So some genes interact with each other. Some of them are inherited more frequently with another gene, but these are completely separate. So that means that they're inherited completely independently. And when you're choosing your breeding stock, you have to make sure that the fish have both of the ones that you want.
Does that make it easier or more difficult for this adventure of yours?
I think it actually made it a little bit more difficult. Yeah.
From a sourcing standpoint, or from once you get the fish, the actual crossing of them?
Like picking from the progeny,
Okay.
like which ones you want to cross.
Gotcha.
With double tail, it's interesting. So double tail, again, is recessive to single tail. So if a fish even has one allele or one version of the single tail gene, that one is the one that's going to express, and it will override the double tail. So, but interestingly, if the fish is carrying double tail, the dorsal will be slightly wider than a normal single tail fish, right?
So you're saying if the single tail fish is carrying the allele for double tail, it
Looks
will
slightly
present
different.
a slightly phenotype, right? Like its phenotype will be expressed a little differently. Cool.
Yeah, the dorsal, instead of having 11 rays or fewer, will have 12 rays or more.
Okay.
So you can just count it.
Okay.
Yeah, which is cool. And a lot of people that work with single tail actually infuse double tail into their lines to make them look more full. To give a slightly broader base on the caudal, just to make the fish look better.
Interesting.
Overall. Yeah, super cool.
so then I guess how long from you created your 4-Punnett square to when you had your breeding stock? How long was that duration?
It was actually way faster than I thought.
Like next weekend, I was
No.
in business.
I think I was on. So if you go to my website, I
Which we can do with the power
Sure.
of the internet.
Oh my goodness, there's my old About Me picture.
Yeah, with the bearded dragon.
Yes, with Weldon. So if you click on, if you hover over spawning bettas, yeah, so those are, oh wait, no, those are spawn logs. Sorry, spawn logs. Yep, and then you hover over crown tail, double tail, and then there's a genealogical chart there.
This is so like if you're
Yeah.
if you're a Betta nerd and just want to go down this rabbit. Oh,
So there's every spawn that I did. And you can see by the third generation that's
you can't hold out on this stuff on me. All right. So the next thing we talk about, you got to Randy. Just go to the website. Oh no, do I have to have a photo bucket?
Oh no. Is that? Oh, that's new. I did not know that it was broken. Oh well.
Well, at least it's loaded there. At least
It's loaded.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, you can see by the third row, I was starting to get there. You can see from that. So on the third row in this picture that I'm showing Randy, there is some pictures of fish from each of the spawns. And you can see I'm getting there, right? The single tails have very broad, beautiful dorsals and all that. Yep. They're really getting there. And then, stroke of luck, genius of genius, I ran into a true crown tail, double tail at Justin's Aquarium in San Francisco.
Ocean aquariums.
Ocean Aquarium, yes. So anyway, so that sped it up a lot. And I was able to breed that male with one of my females that was, recessive for all the traits I wanted and got some really cool double tail crown tails. Another thing that's interesting, so at the very top, at the parent progeny, right, so the female was one of those girls that I got at that very first Betta show that I went to. And then the male was a male that I imported from Thailand. So CBS, the California Betta Society, told me how to do that, There was this breeder that I really loved his fish, and I was able to import one of his males.
Is he still active today?
Yeah, Siam Imbellis.
Siam Imbellis.
Yeah,
Cool.
and I bred one of his males to that double tail female, and you will see my very, very first spawn, top left. Yep, that poor female ended up being a double tail. So that crown tail male was actually carrying recessively the double tail trait. And when I emailed Siam Imbellis about it, he said that there had been no double tail in his spawns for at least 6 generations.
Wow.
So recessive traits can be carried for a long, long time before they express themselves by breeding it to another recessive animal. So
Silly question. So is there a hard and fast, 10th generation recessive gene goes away, completely if it hasn't expressed itself,
No.
or is it just built into that?
It's just numbers. It's
Okay.
frequency, right?
Okay.
It's just how often it gets carried along quietly from
Wow.
generation to generation. That happened again with the red and yellow placots that I was working with. So placots are the short fin bettas. And I got, I think it was a female from Siegbert Elig, who's a very, very famous in the Betta world. He's awesome. Very, very awesome. Siegbert and Judy Illig, sorry.
Nice.
Anyway, so I got a red female from him, bred it to a yellow male, and there should not have been any yellows in that spawn at all, because Siegbert said there's no yellow in these fish. It hasn't been there for 6 generations.
In his reds.
In his reds, yeah. There hasn't been yellow in my line for 6 generations, and then I got yellow fish. So he was carrying yellow at some point. It got infused in, and then Siegbert actually went back into his records, and it was 6 generations ago that he had used a yellow fish. So
Oh wow. So is
yeah.
he an overseas breeder as well?
no, he's
he's
here.
here. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I was going to say, because if those guys over in Thailand or Vietnam or wherever they're doing most of the breeding, if they're actually keeping that detailed records at
Some
this,
do,
at
yeah.
this scale that they operate, that's kind of mind-boggling.
That's
yeah?
why I like Siam Imbellis. That's why I wanted fish from him, especially, because if you look at his fish, very, very much attention to detail.
Let's do it.
Yeah. And then Siegbert is really, really big in the IBC, the International Betta Congress.
SiamImbellis.com. If I remember,
Yeah.
I will link this in the show notes.
Yeah. So I got, some of
Is
my...
he leading with the Thai flag Betta? I like it.
Yeah, very, very, very popular colors. But Yeah, so all of my parent stock came from those three breeders. So Siam Imbellis, Siegbert and Judy Illig, and oh goodness, oh no, I knew this was going to happen.
That's okay. It's
I
okay.
can't remember the third breeder. Oh my goodness.
Somebody's gonna the third breeder's gonna email you and be like,
I
I heard it
know.
on this backwater podcast and I'm sad now.
Oh no.
No, I'm joking.
I'll send it to you
You're
later.
no, you're fine. You're
Yeah.
fine. That's cool. So
Yeah.
Siam Imbellis,
Yeah.
I'm guessing he probably has more stuff just listed on Aquavid.
Yeah, I stayed up till 3 a.m. to get his fish. I specifically wanted a double tail from him. And I stayed up until he refreshed his inventory.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
I feel like was finding the female that you wanted the bigger challenge? Because I guess from a big box or a retail store, obviously the predominant selection is going to be male. And then when you do occasionally see females, I feel like they're more like placati.
It's
kind
hard. A lot of this is kind of something I don't like about the hobbies sometimes.
Are they calling?
No. They just don't give out nice females sometimes. I'm not
Oh.
saying, I'm not gonna. I don't want
No,
to.
it happens. It happens.
It
Yeah.
happens, right? It's like if you really, really like your line, then you protect the females,
Yeah.
right? You don't give out the females because they're 50% of the genetics. And so you just don't. So,
Yeah.
but that's why I love going to shows because usually there's lots of female bettas from really great breeders
Yeah.
that are available.
Well, and in those breeders, I would imagine their their perception on the industry and the hobby is a little bit different than
Yes.
somebody that's just doing this like straight up like this is how I make my money,
Yeah.
and having this
Yeah.
ultra unique strain is kind of their competitive advantage, if you will.
Exactly. You want to sequester them and prevent those genetics from getting out too
Sequester.
fast.
I need to use sequester a little bit more.
Yeah.
We're getting all legal now. We're gonna sequester. Good times. That's awesome. So let's see here. I want to walk through this. So top left, that is the male.
That's a picture of the brother
Oh,
from the
okay.
female that I used. Yes.
Picture of the brother from the. Okay, but then the two.
I didn't have a picture of the female, so I used a picture of the
Oh,
male.
okay.
This was way back in the beginning. Gosh, taking photographs of fish is so hard. Like I got good at taking pictures of bettas just to do these pedigree charts because and I had a potato of a phone. Like I had to buy a DSLR for this dang hobby,
Yeah.
to actually
Well,
record my pedigree chart.
you buy the camera and then it's like, oh, I need a macro lens too. What? I just can't use the lens that came with this
Oh my
expensive camera.
gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I actually ended up using a prime lens, like
Okay.
a fixed lens, and got good at just taking them quickly. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. How I got into photography because of fish. I
I'm
did
with you.
not
No,
anticipate that.
No, I think I'm on that same trajectory where it's I got into photography because of fish.
Yeah.
And then it's naturally then just kind of went for my new love of birds. Or I've always kind of liked
Oh,
birds,
yeah,
but
yeah.
now like having the 200 to 600 Sony lens and just trying to go out as much as I can and take pictures. And I'm pretty lucky that in our backyard, like right on our deck, we'll get downy woodpeckers, pileated woodpeckers.
Oh, I miss the pileatids. Yeah.
I think we get hairy woodpeckers as well. We get juncos, red-breasted nuthatches, gray and chestnut-backed chickadees.
Oh my goodness, so cute.
We get so many year-round visitors, and it's spotted towies. Like I love it, and so busting
Yeah.
out the camera and like just taking those 600 millimeters on an APC sensor camera. So I'm hitting them
my
at like
goodness.
900 millimeter from like 10 feet away. It's just I'm getting the bird in the entire shot. It's awesome.
That's
So,
great.
I'm
I'm
really-
like worried. I felt like I was on that trajectory for a while, like because I started bird watching too after having a nice camera,
awesome.
and I have not gotten like a really good telephoto lens yet.
I used to drive by like those days when you're driving out somewhere. It's like early in the morning, and you see inevitably it's like a Subaru station wagon, and that person's like walking out with their tripod to go film birds or something, and you're like,
Yeah.
who what is this nerd doing? Like, what is this old nerd doing going out? And now I'm like,
and now it's you.
let's go. Like, let's go do this. I'll hang out with you, whatever your name is, in your Subaru station wagon. Let's go film some birds. This is awesome. But
oh my gosh, yeah. I wonder. I'm very curious, like how similar of a trajectory that is for all fish hobbyists, right? Like you start keeping the fish, and then you start, getting more into the genetics, maybe, or breeding, and then you start photographing them, and then now you're into birds.
Are you familiar with Greg Steves, who I interviewed on the podcast? So he and I had an interesting conversation about it, and I think, and also Jim Valenzuela, and I think what birding is it's fish keeping, but without the upkeep. So you get this like Pokemon thrill of getting your lifer, right? So the first time you see a bird, you get to photograph it, so you get to play with the gadget still. You get to go outside and enjoy nature, but you don't have to bring them home and try to breed them and feed them and tank maintenance and all that stuff. And I think there's a certain point where you have so many tanks, you've got so many things going on that you run the risk of burnout. Right? Like, and
that definitely, yes.
And I'm not saying Jim or Greg necessarily burnt out, but, doing it for 20, 30 years and then all of a sudden discovering this whole other side of nature, the avian side of things. And you're just like, man, this is awesome, And I think, maybe there's a good striking balance of, that spring, summertime, late fall activity. You do your birding, but then you still have your tanks for the wintertime when the weather's crappy. And you can still enjoy, being indoors, taking care of your fish, your breeding projects, but just not on like a 200 tank kind of scale,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, even personally, I'm wondering, do I take some of these 10-gallon grow out tanks and just convert some of those into like a 40 breeder? Take 4 10 gallons and just turn it into a 40 breeder, and play with one species in that and let it do its thing, or I don't know.
Yeah. For me, I definitely had to downsize because my operation like exploded, right? I was breeding everything. I was doing these genetic projects. I was breeding killifish, pygmy sunfish, all those things. And then I got into teaching. And teaching is like soul sucking for the first 3. I love teaching. Okay, don't get me wrong.
It's soul sucking until you retire.
No, like going through the credential program and the EdTPA, for any teachers listening, was horrible. And I just had to I had to stop, and so I did scale back quite a bit to make it something that was manageable for me, because when you have that many fry, right, you can't take a break, right?
Yeah.
And then
totally.
if you take a break too long, right, I couldn't even take care of myself, I gained 30 pounds. It was horrible. Anyway, I digress.
I'm totally, like, if it wasn't for my fish room having an auto water change system and me running that on the heavy side, with 2 young boys, a 19-month-old and a 4-year-old.
Oh my goodness.
And then, with a fairly active career of Aquarium Co-op, I don't think I'd be able to have anything beyond, a couple, like a display tank and then a couple of tanks to play around with if I was actually having to do like manual water changes, especially with how heavy-handed I am when it comes to feeding. And I'm just like, bah, bah. And not even me when I let my boys into the fish room and they're helping me out.
They're just chucking it into the tank.
The 4-year-old now, he knows like little pinch, medium pinch, big pinch, right? And so we can, I tell him and he does a great job. But the 19-month-old man, he just goes
the big baby fist
with
like that.
the fist in there. And I'm like, Jonah, and I have to shake the pellets off of his hand.
Aw, killed with kindness.
Yeah,
so
no,
cute.
it's so awesome though. But yeah, their exposure to the hobby is only the fun stuff. Like I'm not gonna be like, now you need to scrub my tanks, because then that's just gonna totally ruin it for them.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'm trying to strike that balance of I want you guys to be exposed to it, and but not have them, not ruin it for them by the laborious side of things. Unless at some point when they're older they want to volunteer for a vacuuming or whatnot. But it's actually an after dinner treat. It's like, hey Johnny, you want to go to the fish room? And he gets all excited and his body convulses, and we go down to the fish room and feed. And
that's so cute.
So it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I can't take a day off of feeding because of the brine shrimp hatching. Every day hatching out brine shrimp. Like, okay, well if you skip this day, that brine shrimp is gonna die. It's gonna, it's already gone 48 hours is my brine shrimp cycle. So I run 2 hatchers, and so every day I hatch, and then it sits for a day, and then I hatch it the next day with those 2 running. And so if I miss a day, I might be pushing it with what I should have harvested out yesterday. And, you don't want to push the baby brine shrimp hatch too far. So
That's why I like the flexibility of the dishes.
the little
Like
dish is pretty cool. Yeah,
they're
and I ran that.
amazing.
Yeah, we don't sell that thing. I've actually reached out to try to get it so that's something that we could sell because it's so convenient. And if you've got a fish room, you're gonna have to run 5 of them. I've tried it. I've run up to 3, but if you do it right, you get 0 eggs. The brine shrimp basically go through this little maze to reach the center where the light's going, and you've got that sweet little cup. You just lift it up, and you get maybe, I don't know, like a couple hundred brine shrimp in there, and just just dab it in and put it back in, and the brine shrimp will refill itself. And I think I've let it go like probably 2 or 3 days.
Oh, me too. Yeah, you can really stretch it out.
Yeah.
I always add like a little bit more brine shrimp egg on the second day, and then you get an even better hatch.
Oh, heresy. Look at you. It's dirty water. What are you doing,
Oh,
Gianne?
it's fine. It's fine. What doesn't kill them makes them stronger. It's okay.
Hey, there's heated brine shrimp conversations.
I
know. I did my first ever presentation to the Long Island Killifish Association, and by presentation,
killifish.
yeah,
Oh my
killifish.
gosh, yeah.
It was just Randy like doing a Zoom with with the guys from the club and just kind of showing them around my fish room and letting them ask questions and whatnot. And I mean, the irony there is that every single one of those guys had infinite more experience than me, and they're like, we've
You were
had
just a talking point at that point.
they're like, we've had too many big names recently. Let's lower the bar a little bit. We don't want to keep this high streak going. But they were all super awesome, and I think everybody walked away with maybe like a tip or 2 from me, and I definitely got some good advice from them on some stuff. But one of them at some point was asking, how do I hatch my brine shrimp? And so I showed them my little setup and everything, and kind of talked through it a little bit. And they're like, oh, do you reuse your water? And I'm like, oh no, I don't. But and they even said that was like a contentious point in their club and they threw somebody on the bus like, oh, Harry's a cheapo and he always reuses his water or something like that. And I'm like, no, I just throw it in the tanks, and sometimes I rinse. Well, I don't rinse, but sometimes it just drains naturally through the sieve.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll use a siphon and I'll get some of the water.
Yeah.
Now I wouldn't take brine shrimp water with brine shrimp in it and squirt it into like a 2-gallon. I would probably let that fully sieve out.
Yeah.
But like a 20 high with some Corys, I'll just shoot that in there. But that was funny though that was a divisive thing in their club, and also water versus peat moss incubation was another divisive point. And I think another
That's a
equally
big
one. To methylene blue or not, to hit your eggs with some type of antifungal agent, and it's like, oh man, there's some landmines right there.
It's really funny, and part of me wonders like how much of it is ritual and how much of it is like actually been tested.
I mean, it's so hard. Like if somebody's got 30, 40 years of experience doing something, and even if it's like crusty set in their ways, it's like, man, if that works for you though.
It's true. There's definitely a long-term component there. Well, but have you really, people say tried and true. Well, it's true, but have you really tried it?
Trust but verify.
Yeah. Did you really divide a spawn in 2 or divide the eggs in 2 and meth blue 1 and not the other?
So what I am doing to try to do a little bit of a test in my fish room is I've got Scleromastix barbatus, so the barbatus cory, and I got a group of 12 of them, and I divided them into 220 highs, so 6 and 6.
Okay.
And then one tank has a substrate layer of like a number 3 smaller size gravel, and then the other one has sand. But they both have the same sword in the back. They've got the same Java moss. They've got the same, filters, all that stuff. And it's just, by chance, will one of those produce more prodigiously than the other one? Like,
cool.
Who knows? Just to see, because there is kind of this thing about cories and substrate. So I don't know. Maybe if it ends up being like, well, in my experience, the ones on the fine sand produce at like 5 times the rate as the ones on the pebbles. Then that's something. But to be fair, like they haven't spawned yet for me, so at this point, I'll take anything.
I love experiments like that at home. I love doing stuff like that. I think that reminds. Sorry,
Oh no.
I remember. I was just thinking about some of the at-home experiments I was doing. And I met Dr. Gene Lucas. He's like the dude that started International Betta Congress.
Nice.
And he was a betta geneticist. And he got really excited about my crown tail double tail project and all the things I was doing. And then he asked me, he was like, did you sit and count every one of the fish that came out of your spawn and categorize them? And I was like, sit and count? I do that at work. I don't want to do it at home. That's a lab thing. And at the time, I was like doing my PhD and also doing the thing at home.
And trying to have some type of a social life.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I didn't want to sit and count all of my bettas and that's tabulate.
You just crowdsource your friends. Like, hey guys, I got this great new game. It's a super awesome board game that you just come over. I'll have pizza. We'll have a good time.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, I did it for the smaller spawns, but for 200, 300 fish, I didn't want to sit and like scoop them into different tanks.
So I do want to, and I say this with a lot of people, but for sure, like, we just need to have like a recurring, like, Randy and Gianne, just, you let me be selfish and just record you talking to me and teaching me about stuff. But I would love to have you on to talk more about just so much of this experience that you have. But I'm gonna be selfish and divert it to Randy's current betta breeding attempts, right? So I think I sent you some pictures via Facebook Messenger, but let's pull it up on the forum.aquariumcoop.com for those of you not members of this wonderful forum. Are you a member of this forum, Gianne?
I think I signed up, maybe.
Oh, hey, that's a step.
I don't think I've been checking it.
It's all no. Hey, you're signed up. That's
maybe I'm signed up. Maybe if you check, I'm not there. I don't know.
All right, so I'm gonna
I remember seeing it though, and I was like, oh, that looks interesting. I
love this because so many people that would never, create a YouTube channel, right? Because now, like,
forums are the best. I miss that.
It's so personality centric right now that you don't have a channel, you don't have a page, like nobody's really gonna hear about you. And this, like, the forums give people an opportunity to everybody be on the same platform, sharing if they want to share or not. And it's going to get relatively the same amount of views because you post something, it's going to go to the top, right?
And
people
it's saved, right? It's saved for posterity. Like, everyone can look at the thread and learn from it.
All right, so Randy's fish room. Let's see here. I do need to learn how to follow content better. I will say that. And when I think that, I'm like, man, I'm getting old. Like, technology is hurting my brain these days.
I know.
All right, so this is my fish room thread with pictures of ponds and getting some fish in. Let's see here. Part of my auto water chain. Somebody had some questions. Yeah, I now have a Wi-Fi sprinkler system, water sprinkler system, so I can kick off water changes from the comfort of my couch.
Wow.
With my phone. It's hilarious.
That's awesome.
But so be warned, if you want to do this, people, that these things are so smart that they're programmed to be in sync with your local weather. So when it's raining, they have like a bypass feature that won't kick off.
Oh no!
And that's not good.
You
if you
want
have a fish
to
room.
water change during
so you have to
weather.
go like 17 menus deep to turn that off, right? So I mean, kudos for it being, because this is the old one, the old Rainbird, the manual one.
Yeah.
And then this is the new Beehive,
That's cool.
Wi-Fi controlled thing, which so far has been pretty awesome. So
yeah, you want to water change when it's raining. That's when they want to spawn.
There's some of my angels laying some eggs. I got some discus laying some eggs. Discus are still eluding me on the successful being able to actually get the fry out of the tank before the parents eat them. We're making wonderful, wonderful audio content. Me doing this, me and my hokey overflow. So this is when you have a bunch of PVC lying around, but you don't have the right parts.
Oh my goodness!
You just Frankenstein. So this should have been one piece from the overflow on the tank to basically this little blue barb guy to the PVC pipe lead. Well, the clear tubing leading to the main drain. So I didn't have the one proper 90-degree elbow, so I had to take like 4 different pieces to make it work.
Oh my goodness.
Because I wasn't making a trip at Home Depot at 9:30 at night.
I've done some of that stuff too. It's like,
All right, page 2. So basically what I'm doing also is, and there's that tank sprung a leak, so I had to move those. Hey, there's my reflection of me in flip-flops. All right, good job. So yeah, here is the, now let's see if I can breed some bettas.
Awesome.
I don't know if I sent you these pictures, but this is the setup I have. There's my female. Here's my black red placati kind of male, and so
Yeah.
I've got the catappa leaf, I've got the piece of water lettuce. The for line of sight blocking, I just put one of our medium sponge filters right in the center. Let them kind of get familiar with each other for a day, and
Yeah.
then introduce the female. And then I even linked Dean and
Yay.
Corey's video about them talking about that setup.
Uh-huh.
And I've done that now 3 times. The most recent time, it seemed like the male made the best bubble nest, and I was pretty excited about that, but no luck so far. So
Interesting.
what are your thoughts? And then here's where I introduced the piece of styrofoam. So here's
Uh-huh.
that real
Oh,
nice,
there's a nice.
right? Now
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, I think I got some success. So then I moved the female out, right? But come to find out, they didn't actually spawn.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts? Just keep going with the same formula.
Okay, so the thing with breeding bettas, right, is they're all different. And I like to think of it as like having a toolbox of different tricks and tips to try and troubleshoot what's happening. So, how is the female's condition going into this tank?
She looks pretty fat and
Okay.
healthy. She's by herself in a 10-gallon tank.
Does she do her ovaries pop? Like, does she look busty? Like,
I mean, is the belly swollen? Like, does she
Yeah,
look a little
yeah,
gravid?
yeah,
And then
okay.
like I feel like you can even see that little bit of like the egg,
okay, yeah, the ovipositor,
The
like
ovi-
sticking out a little bit. Okay, that's good.
which almost sounds like a made up like mechanical name.
I
The
know.
ovipositor.
I know. Let's see. So I like to let the fish, and this is going to sound strange. I like to let them kind of go on dates. Like I'll put them next to each other in their own individual tanks, but I'll put like a card in between them. And then I will remove the card and let them flare at each other for 10, 15 minutes morning and night, just to like get used to each other. And then that will also stimulate egg production, but it sounds like the female's fine on that front. But just to get them ready for it. So then when you do introduce them into this tub, they're, they're well acquainted. Live food? Do they have live food?
Frozen bloodworms.
Okay. I mean, you can spawn with frozen as well.
Well, okay, so let's. What live food would you recommend?
I love white worms, so they're nice and fatty. You don't want to feed them those all the time, but before breeding and after breeding is wonderful because the fat, like I feel like it gives them. I've noticed that there's way more eggs and that they tend to spawn much faster
And-
if they've been eating that fatty food.
And would the white worms be the ones where you start with the culture and put them in like the potato mix? Or am
Yeah,
thinking of-
I culture them in soil.
Okay.
And just very easy. I feed them dog food or cat food. There's lots of different ways to culture white worms, but I think they're cleaner than black worms. Again, it depends on the source. Like if you're getting it from the co-op, they're fine.
I don't think we ever sell.
Oh, you don't
yeah,
wear
we
them?
don't do
You
live
don't do
cultures.
them anymore?
No.
Oh, wow. That was a long time ago then. Showing my age again. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, white worms are nice and clean, nice and fatty. And then.
Because I find that adult bettas don't really care for baby brine shrimp. Like I've squirted it in there and they're like, meh, what is this?
Yeah, they're not like killifish
Right.
that are going to go after it. But yeah, the white worms are really, really nice to condition for breeding. And then you want to start looking for how they interact. So the female will kind of go, when she sees the male through the barrier, she'll like, if she's receptive, she'll tilt down at a 45-degree angle and have the white barring and just kind of be more submissive. She'll flare occasionally and then do that.
Where
the
would
male
where would the white barring be? Just on the side of her
on
body?
the side of the body if
Okay.
they're dark bodied. If they're light bodied, then you can't see them.
Okay.
But I've had bettas spawn without doing that submissive display too. I've just put them together and then they just start spawning as well. You can try, speaking of rain, you can try and do it just as it starts to rain, like as a front comes in. Now it's kind of hard because it's raining all the time.
Yeah, it's just always raining here.
But like when a front comes in is often when they are stimulated to spawn. Do you cover it? Is it light? How much light is in there?
This is uncovered, basically getting a full like LED 3 feet above. kind of
Okay,
hitting down.
you might want to cover it.
Okay.
A lot of Thai breeders do this too. Just put them in darkness, complete
Okay.
darkness. I used to do that too. I mean, I've spawned them in everything from 10 gallons to 5 gallons to styrofoam tubs, like you can, as long as there's water. But I would cover it so that there's even less distraction from the light.
Cool.
Try that. Let's see, what else can you try? How long did you leave them together?
Basically I'd say like 24 hours.
Oh, you can leave them longer.
Oh, longer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the fastest I've ever had bettas spawn was less than 30 minutes.
So
That was fun.
I will say that what I did and what it was based on was watching them initially interact. Like, okay,
Yeah.
everything's okay. They're not necessarily killing each other. And then I would leave the fish room. And then when I would come back the next day, the female was definitely like off on her own.
Yeah, she'll be off. Yeah.
And the male was doing his own thing. And I'm like, maybe that's successful. So then at that point, I pulled the female. But
Yeah. So I would, they
and then
will.
and then I get my head down there super close, like trying to look in the bubble nest. Like, is there?
Yeah.
Are there eggs in there? I'm like, I can't.
Oh man, I remember that. Yeah. No. You should. The longest it's ever taken was 14 days. So as long as they're not killing each other, as long as the female's still gravid, as long as the male is still maintaining a bubble nest, there's still a chance.
Okay.
And temperature. What temperature is it?
Fish room is about 76, so that's on the
Oh.
bottom rack. That's going to be about 74.
Ooh, bump it
cold?
up. That's
Bump it- okay.
probably that should have been the first question I asked you.
Where's the flow chart? Where's the flow chart, Gianne?
have been
Of you're a new betta breeder.
I
Here's
know.
the flow chart. Do you have a flow chart on your website?
That is a great idea
Oh,
that
look
I've
at
never
that.
thought of before. So
Awesome.
maybe he'll make one and like contribute. But 80 degrees or warmer.
80 degrees. I'm such a noob.
Yeah.
All right, 80
no,
degrees.
you're not yeah, 80 degrees. I would put it right at 80 is good. Some people even bump it a little higher, 82 degrees. But that will help. So
Should do I then need to have their home tanks also at 80 degrees?
yeah, if not to
'Cause-
maintain, like pet bettas
Okay.
can go down to room temp. Their metabolism will be slower. You need to feed them less. But bettas really like being at 80 degrees.
The fish room is definitely like 76 to 78 degrees.
Yeah, you could put like a little under tank heating pad or, however you safely heat your tanks to 80, 82. And I bet you'll see a much different response.
Just in this
To
breeding setup.
condition them.
Or even the conditioning.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would put them at 80, 82 for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then put them back in. And I bet that'll make a big difference.
So one of the things I could do with the way that my fish room is set up, having all the gladiator racks, like very much like the racks we have out there in the warehouse, 3 tiers of aquariums with 10 gallons, kind of lengthwise, I could turn off the auto water change for one of those tanks, reduce the water level, and then maybe use those as the home tanks, I guess, and not move them to a separate small container like this. Like, what are your thoughts? Because I guess the reason I'm doing the bin as opposed to an aquarium is that all of my tanks are on auto water change.
Got it, yeah.
I could turn the auto water change off, but I just felt like having a smaller container is probably better for this. Is
Yeah,
that-
I definitely find they spawn faster in smaller containers.
Okay.
My go-to was a 10-gallon, half-filled 10-gallon, because I was lazy and didn't want to move the fry.
Sure.
Because then you could just fill it up and they can
Uh-huh.
stay in there forever. But they spawn much faster in smaller containers. But then you have to move the fry sooner. So,
So
but
I've got 2 really good takeaways from this. The first is heat their containers to their tanks to 80 to 82 degrees for conditioning. All
Yeah.
right, and then also have this be at the same temperature,
And you want the fry to be 80 too. Yeah, while they're growing. So.
and then also cover this to give them a little darkness. Or should I
Yeah,
try it with
little
just
privacy. Yeah.
okay?
I mean, I'm sure this could be one of those true but not tried things, right? I find that they typically would go faster covered, and a lot of Thai breeders cover them.
Hey, if the breeders are doing it,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
gotta be something to it.
I mean, that could also just be a physical barrier to not jump out at the tub.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think
She
they're a
did
little
actually
faster.
jump out of her little container once into there. I was like, ah! I think it might have been the first time. I'm like, I didn't know you guys were ready, and then
Oh,
she
yeah.
had jumped out, and luckily not
They're
too far.
incredible. They can, I
Yeah.
swear they can fly. Like I had a betta fight its way through 2 layers of plastic wrap to die on the floor. Like I didn't know that was possible.
Wow.
Yeah, that betta was really determined.
So Betta versus killifish on jumping. Who do you think?
Oh geez, the big wild bettas. I think they could give killifish a run for their
Yeah.
money. But the big killifish, I used to have a blue galaris, and just as a pet, I didn't
this-
breed blue galaris. But I was like, it was one of those 16 tall tanks, and I hate tall tanks because I'm really short and I can't reach the bottom. And so I'm like on my tippy toes trying to clean his tank, and then he I must have been like 1.5 feet, right, between my face and the top of the water. He got spooked and like leapt up and smacked me in the face, like really hard.
That's a good like 3.5 inches of
Yeah,
fish.
that's a
Yeah.
big fish. Just so, yeah, I think the killifish still win, but the bettas do give them a run for their money.
Don't worry, I had a fish jump out of the water and whack me while we were seining in Peru.
Oh my
so.
gosh.
And that, like your story of you falling at the Betta meeting,
Yeah.
is also on video. So I think Jimmy even threw like a graphic in there and some sounds and whatnot. It's like,
That's
oh
awesome.
man. Well, and the funny thing about that is I was trying to play a prank. So like we're all moving this seine net towards the beach, and then typical goofball Randy, I'm like, piranha, like I said piranha in Spanish or something, and got a laugh, and then all of a sudden a real fish flies out of where we're seining, and I think it hits me. I think it did hit me.
Oh
And it's
my
like,
goodness.
and then Corey had caught it all on video because he was up on the boat on like the second
Yeah.
level filming down. It's like, oh man.
That's karma for you.
yeah, that happens. And that was the same spot where I had the GoPro on my head on that little like elastic head rig. I jump in the water, and sure enough, what happens when you do that with a GoPro? It fell. So
Oh my
we're
goodness.
talking like 10 feet down, murky brown water, and I was quick enough because I didn't drift far enough. Like the moment I realized it was gone, went straight down, and just a couple pats around, I found it.
Oh my goodness.
Which like who?
That is lucky.
I mean, I'm just like, this GoPro's gone. Like, no way. And sure enough, like I was able to get it. My wife would have killed me if I lost it. I would not be getting a second GoPro if Randy lost his in Peru. That's for certain.
That's awesome.
All right, so I've got two really, really good takeaways on that.
Yeah, hopefully they spawn. And then, have they spawned before? Sorry, that's another question.
No, they have not.
Okay,
Yeah,
they're
this
both-
is
yeah.
this is one of those like one and done for me. Like I just want to breed the bettas one time just to say that I've done it, and
Yeah.
then figure out how I'm gonna get rid of 200 bettas.
Yeah,
once
yeah.
they do spawn.
Because sometimes the males, so we have this term in the betta community, like sometimes males are TSTB, too stupid to breed. Sometimes.
TSTB, okay.
Yeah, sometimes.
Thought it was gonna be technical, but all right,
No.
TSTB.
And I've seen males mess up at every level of breeding and fry rearing. I've seen some crazy things, but yeah, if they've never spawned before, he might just not know how, and might take a couple of tries to get used to each other.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm totally cool with. It's just I want to make sure that I'm at least setting them up, which it sounds like I'm not doing my part as the aquarist to actually
Yeah.
give them the proper temperature and maybe lighting setup that they need. But yeah, no, those are really good because I really want to be able to share like some successful
Yeah.
pictures of like, hey guys, the 17th time was the charm, and look.
No, it took me so long. Like, and even after getting them going, like the hardest part too was rearing the fry for me. Yeah.
And it's great when it's like you hear about how easy it is. It's like,
Well, yeah. Once you figure it out, I had one male that was so aggressive, like beat up all the females I threw in, and then I borrowed a female that was very good at breeding from someone in the club, and I loved it. I put them in, and he started being way too aggressive, like he normally was. 4th attempt, she beat the crap out of him. Like, hey, buddy, this is not gonna
man.
work. This is not how you breed.
Oh man, it's like you gotta buy me some bug bites.
Yeah.
Take me out on a little tannin water stroll.
Yeah, and it fixed him. He was the best breeder after that. So
But looking at this final setup though, styrofoam cup, line of sight block, water lettuce, catappa leaf, water's
Yeah.
going a little tannin. Do you think I'm doing okay?
You could stuff it with more if you want. Like, put as much of those plants in as you want. Like,
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just let
I
him.
like to have like half crowded, half uncrowded. And then have the bubble nest like kind of nudge it so that it's somewhere where the bottom is clear and you can see them. But yeah,
Yeah.
that looks good.
This experience makes me a little sad that I had a Wallstad / dirted / non-filtered planted tank in my kitchen. It was a little 10-gallon. It's the Shrimp King Denale tank, all glass sides, wide bottom. And I had, super chock full of plants, floating plants, water lettuce, and I had 3 sparkling gouramis in there. And I actually they spawned many, many times.
Oh, wow.
But I wasn't hatching like baby brine shrimp or like paramecium or like any of the small foods. But I did actually have like 2 that successfully made it to adulthood, and that was pretty
wow.
cool. But like, kind of knowing that I did that and had a group that was, at least boy, girl that were willing to get it on, like not really like, giving it a good effort and then
Yeah.
logging it for bat points and all that fun stuff where it's like, there's like 10 points I could have had in the
Yeah,
bat
yeah.
program. That would have, because I think right now I'm going to be intermediate breeder. And then I think I'm like 10 points away from going up to the advanced breeder.
Ooh, very nice.
But yeah, because I've got Dean in my sight because Corey, always, he's a master breeder in our club, right?
Yeah,
because
yeah,
of the
yeah.
bat points, and I can't wait until I'm like, hey, Dean, guess what? I too have the title of master breeder.
I know this pedestal got to get a little wider.
It doesn't matter that I use the loophole of 17 varieties of guppies to get no.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
not going to do that. I'm not doing that. You can go and see my submissions. They're not like that. But no, it's just it's a lot of fun. Yeah, just to do it the one time because I think like it's just so like quintessential like breeding of bettas.
Yeah.
Like you gotta do it. You gotta do it. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's also why I like wild bettas because they are so much easier than this. I mean, they can be at normal room temperature. They a lot of them are mouth brooders. The females initiate spawning. You just pull out the male and then they have the fry and you put them back in and then they do it again.
Which is
so
kind of
nice.
a segue into I might be getting some of your Betta Rubras.
You
Yes,
are.
I
We
will
just
be.
have
Okay.
to figure out how to get them.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna start with one female and then
Oh, 2 males
Two
and
males?
1 female.
okay.
Yeah.
So
you
that
will
reverse trio.
because they're paternal mouth brooders. So
That means Daddy has to do all the work.
Yes.
Okay.
well, same thing. It's just
Yeah. Well, true. And no mouth brooding with the splendens. What is because I'm being very conscious of time. I don't want to keep you here longer than I have to. What's the quick 2 or 3 minute rundown on Betta Rubra, and then maybe once you send them up and I have some experience with them, we could jump on a Skype call and,
for
and just kind
sure.
of go over that. And
yeah.
So, what's the 2-3 minute rundown?
So
on Betta Rubra?
easy. Paternal mouth brooders. Again, feed them really well. White worms I like to use, just nice fatty foods for conditioning. They can be kept at room temp, or sounds like your fish room is the perfect temperature for them. And then you just keep them in a colony, lots of hiding places, although my fish are pretty friendly. So, and then you just wait. They can be, I've had people with my Betta Rubra have them in all different water conditions, soft, hard, salty, doesn't matter. And then the female initiates spawning, and then she can spawn with more than 1 male at a time. Male holds for around 21 days, can be anywhere from I've had them 19 to 24, 27 days if it's really cold. And then the male spits out pretty large fry, and the fry can take baby brine shrimp right away.
Nice.
So,
And
then
do you pull the fry?
I've done all variations. The easiest is to pull the male into another container where you want the fry. Can be any container that you want, however you rear your fry. And then put the male back into his own tank before you put him back into the colony.
Let him recuperate a little bit.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah, because he doesn't eat at all. And the female will initiate spawning right away. And we've had instances in our club where the females are so ravenous that they'll literally starve the males to death, just breeding constantly. He
geez.
never eats for 3 months,
Jeez.
Yeah, you gotta be careful.
That's very cool. That's a pretty fish.
yeah, gorgeous.
Does this have a nickname? Like the
I
blah blah
don't think
Betta
so.
or
Better.
the
Oh,
blink, blink?
they're mine on the left side. Those are my Betta Rubra. The ones you
There
will
go,
be
yeah.
getting.
Inglorious
Yeah.
Bettas. Awesome.
So they're very beautiful. There's 2 forms. There's round tail and spade tail. I'm partial to spade tail. I think they look a little more exaggerated.
I assume this bottom one right here is spade tail, right?
That's spade tail.
Yeah,
Yes.
that looks awesome.
Yeah. I've never bred the round tail or tried. I would be very curious how those interact with each other, which one's dominant or recessive to the other. I have no idea. I've only just ever worked with the spade tails. So
I'm very excited about this. I think this is gonna be pretty cool.
yeah,
to
and they're
get
so
these guys.
easy. Oh my goodness,
But
they're
you're
like the
setting me
guppies of
up.
Bettas.
You're
I'm sorry.
setting me up.
I'm sorry.
It's gonna be like 3 months. Listeners gonna be like, "Hey, Randy, how those Betta Rubras doing?" Just breeding like crazy. That female, whew,
Oh my goodness.
she's a real hustler, man.
Yeah, they're fun though.
No, definitely. All right, Gianne. Well, this has been super fun. I have definitely enjoyed giving you a chance to tour our warehouse and now being able to record a socially distanced podcast with you. We are still masked up. Hopefully the quality of these Shure microphones doesn't even make it sound like we're actually masked up and sitting very far apart from each other.
Yeah, and there's like multiple fans blowing in here.
There are multiple fans blowing in here. We have HEPA filters. We have UV lights. We're actually wearing protective sunglasses to kill everything in the air. But yeah, I hope everybody's enjoyed this episode. I certainly have. And Gianne, I definitely want to have you back on because you've been.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
If you would have me. If you would have me, because there's like diseases and just like there's so much stuff that we could talk about. Your experience with the podcast, current favorite of the Okefenokee pygmy sunfish.
Oh yeah, I love those.
You have experience with those ones as well. You've already told me the secret though on how to breed them.
Don't tell
Bob Steenfot. I'm not, and I'm purposely diverting the conversation away from that so that he doesn't learn. Not that Bob even listens to the podcast.
I mean, it's on YouTube, I think.
No, stop it, Gianne, stop it. All right, Gianne. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much.